What up, players? It's Warboss Tay up in this mud, doing an unbooking of the Horus Heresy novel Fulgrim, which is by Graham McNeil, and it was written in 2007. I'm actually looking at the Lexicanum page on it because it is going to help me jog my memory on all of it. But I want to give you a reader's review, having just finished it a little while ago. So here are the specifics of it. Graham McNeil, publisher Black Library from the Horus Heresy series. The book right before it is The Flight of the Eisenstein, and right after it is Descent of Angels. But it could be considered the fifth of the because it's a fifth book. You've got the first three books on the Horus Heresy, which focus on the Luna Wolves that when they turn into the Sons of Horus, and how Horus the Primarch betrayed the Imperium. Really, really great story on how the Horus Heresy all started. Flight of the Eisenstein, book number 4, is about one of the loyalists as he tries to escape all of that and go and warn the Emperor. And then here is book number 5, which describes a little bit of what was happening from the Emperor's Children Legion. Now, the great thing about this book is because it's the 5th book in the series, and it kind of ties in little, it throws in cameos of the earlier books. It ties in some earlier storylines that you will definitely have remembered. And I suggest if you are into the Horus Heresy series that you definitely pick this one up and read it after the first 4. I think the first 3 in the series were definitely the best. In fact, let's look them up for those of you who have not read them yet. And just because I need a little refresher myself on what they were. Actually, here. It's right here at the bottom. Oh, hello. You've got the Horus Heresy, Horus Rising. Here we go. Horus Rising was the first one. You see right there. Followed by False Gods, Galaxy in Flames, and then Battle of the Eisenstein. And then Fulgrim is number 5. So, the first 3 is its own self-contained story. The first 3 books in the series, and then the 4th one, like I said, focuses on one aspect of it, of one of the loyalists who fights in the Death Guard Legion. And then this one deals with the Emperor's Children Legion. For those of you who don't know, the whole Horus Heresy series follows characters, usually Space Marines, that are in the 18 legions that took part in the greatest battle of the Warhammer 40,000 universe back in 30,000, called the Horus Heresy, when one of the Primarchs, or genetic general gene children of the almighty Emperor, said, the heck with the Imperium, I'm going to do my own thing, and I've got my Chaos God buddies that are going to help me out. And he convinced 9 of the 18 legions to turn traitor and try and overthrow the Emperor and the Imperium of Man back in Warhammer 30,000. One of the legions that he got, or armies of Space Marines, to help him overthrow the Emperor was the Emperor's Children. The Emperor's Children, I've done a Fluff Hunters video on them before. They are super duper tragic because they were formed and created specifically to be perfect in all things. Their goal was always to be the most perfect legion in war, in fighting, the most enlightened and culturally, enlightened legion. They were into art and music and beauty and perfection in all things, and they prided themselves on being the most perfect perfect legion, martial-wise. They perfected their tactics. Every time they would drill, they really, really tried to attain the perfection of their martial skills. The reason for this was because of all the Space Marine legions, something happened when they were being created where not only were they separated from their Primarch, like all of the other Space Marine legions, but the gene seed, which all Space Marines need in order to become Space Marines, the gene seed glands were mysteriously destroyed in the science labs of where they were being created. So unlike all of the other Space Marine legions, the Emperor's Children only had a couple hundred of gene seeds when they were being created. So they were already at a disadvantage because they were the most They were the most rarest, the fewest in number. They had to be really, really good, because if they were not, then they were afraid that they would lose the 200 or so, a couple hundred Space Marines they had, and then all of a sudden they would be gone, obliterated, wiped out. So they strove for perfection and to be the best and to win every single fight. And they were honorable and they were loyal, and that's what makes their betrayal of the Emperor so sad. Their color scheme originally was this beautiful regal purple with gold, and when they found their Primarch, who is called Fulgrim, then Fulgrim told them that he specifically is quoted as saying, "We are the children of the Emperor, we cannot fail him. The only way we can fail him is if we are not perfect." And meaning that if they were weak, if they died, then they could not perpetuate the Imperium and the tenets of the Emperor, and then they would have failed him. So, sure. Yeah, so the Emperor's children were tragically, from the beginning, they already had the odds stacked against them. And then the book, Fulgrim, is all about how there are certain elements within the Emperor's children who strive so hard to be perfect that along the way they have a little bit of arrogance because they try so hard, and then they start to look down on the other legions, and then that leads to hubris, and that leads to their tragic downfall. What other event happens in the novel, Fulgrim? Spoilers! Turn your video off now if you don't want spoilers. Is that they attack an alien world. So when I think about the book, Fulgrim, it really describes a couple of very important events in the Emperor's Children's Great Crusade era, and what happens to them to make them turn from the light of the Emperor. The first is that Apothecary Fabius Bile, who still exists in Warhammer 40,000, he asks the Primarch, Fulgrim, if he can kind of tinker with the gene seed of the Emperor's children, try to figure out ways to unlock the Emperor's secrets in creating Space Marines. The Emperor didn't want anybody to do that. He wanted to keep secret all of his experiments and how he genetically modified his troops to turn them into Space Marines. But Fabius Bile was ambitious. He wanted to figure out and unlock the secrets of the creation of the Space Marines in order to make them better. He said to Fulgrim that he wanted to improve upon them and make them even more perfect. And Fulgrim at first said, "What? That's crazy. You can't do that. We're created in the Emperor's very image. How dare you? No, I will not stand for that. I should have you killed." But then Fabius Bile said, "Hey, if you want to be perfect, I want to help you do that, my brother, and let me help you unlock the secrets so that we can be that which you want, which is to be perfect." And so, oh my gosh, look at these jet bikes. Awesome. So Fulgrim says, "All right, fine, you have my permission, start messing around." And that's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens, the big turning point which the book goes into, is that they attack a temple of an alien civilization known as the Lair, or Lair, L-A-E-R. I kind of like the pronunciation liar because it sounds like liar. And even though lies and trickery and deceit are Tzeentch's kind of bywords, the fact that Slaanesh has taken over this alien race is just really, really funny to me. So the aliens, the Lyran, or the Lyran, are kind of pushing back against the Emperor's children, and then the Emperor's children go to subjugate them and destroy them, and the last place where they hold out is a temple. And in this temple, they worship Slaanesh, although Fulgrim, the Emperor's children, don't know anything about this yet because they have no concept of what chaos and the chaos gods are about. They attack the temple, they find a sword, a silver sword, in the middle of the temple, and Fulgrim comes and he takes the sword as a trophy, and lo and behold, little does he know that inside the sword is a captive demon of Slaanesh. And that demon starts to whisper to Fulgrim and starts to talk to him and convince him and kind of coerce him and convince him to do nasty, nasty, chaotic things. So Fulgrim's flagship originally was It's called The Pride of the Emperor, and it's a great place of culture and learning and art and military might. But all of a sudden, because Fulgrim starts to take in the whispered advice, coercions of this demon of Slaanesh, it starts to change. His flagship starts to change. Because of Fabius Bio's experiments, he starts experimenting on the Space Marines themselves, rewiring their brain with their pleasure centers so that anytime they inflict pain or have pain inflicted on them, they feel a little jolt of pleasure. All of this stuff starts to happen, which changes the Emperor's children and kind of starts steering them towards a very bad outcome. And then that's pretty much what the book kind of describes. The book ends with an amazing and fantastic description of the Battle of Istavan V, otherwise known as the Dropsite Massacre. If you have no concept of the Warhammer 40,000 or Warhammer 30,000 universe, then everything that I might be saying could be flying over your head. So in that case, I'll just go to my review of the book. The book covers, I think, too many characters. You get really, it really has an epic scope, but for just one book, it, unfortunately, for me as a reader, kind of meanders a little bit too much. You get to meet a couple of captains, of Fulgrim's captains of different companies in the Emperor's Children. And unfortunately, their names all sound the same. Julius, Solomon, and there was this other guy. I don't even remember. Let's take a look at the book and try and remember what all the names are. There we go. Notable characters. You've got Julius Caesoron, Solomon Demeter, and Marius Virosian. The first Lord Commander's names are Vespasian and Eidolon. And just these three guys at the beginning, it's hard to keep track of who is what. And the thing is, in the very beginning, for me, I felt that I didn't get a good idea of what separated each one from the other. They're all captains, Julius, Solomon, and Marius, but certain things happen to each of them that kind of shape their path throughout the book. I guess you're kind of meant, there's no real person, there's no unifying voice that you are meant to follow. Unfortunately, like the first couple of books, you had Garviel Loken, who is the kind of the outsider and the reader's avatar that kind of you follow throughout the whole book. In this one, I wasn't sure who to follow because each of them had good qualities and negative qualities. And in a way, it was hard and it was negative because I didn't have someone to root for. Like Eidolon, there are some people, like Erebus, Eidolon, that you know from the beginning they're bad apples and you don't like them and you want them to fail because they're evil, like Fabius Bile. But you aren't sure with Julius, Solomon, and Marius what to think of them. And in some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad. I'm not saying either way, but it could be a negative for you or it could be a positive because they all start off kind of the same and neutral and anything can happen that would make one turn evil against the others. I'm just saying maybe their names could have been a little bit different so that we could, as readers, kind of separate them in our brains. You see some people from the first couple of books. Saul Tarvitz, Lucius, Fabius, like I said, is there, and Eidolon. So if you read the earlier books, it's really cool seeing them pop up because the book spans a long period of time and jumps forward in time so that there are all the events of the first couple of books kind of get hinted at and referred to, and that's really awesome. The next thing that it does is it shows you a bunch of Primarchs, and Primarchs are always awesome to see in action in the books because the Primarchs are like the epitome of what it means to be a super proto-human being, and the Emperor made them to be almost like his sons, and they're all just amazing, 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 martially, awe-inspiring, just regular humans and Space Marines see them and just they bow because they bow down to them because they're just so amazing and awesome. And in this book, you really get to understand Fulgrim. You get in his head. You also get to see Ferrus Manus is the next one that you get a lot of insight behind. Then Horus, Vulcan, and Corax make appearances as well. Then you've got Remembrancers here. Serena de Angelis, who's like a painter. Bekwa Kinska, who's a composer, and Austin de la Fleur, who's a sculptor. The thing is, again, you're not sure who to root for because Ostian is kind of the voice or the one who we see the events through, and he's just a human. And the Remembrancers are there to catalog what's going on, right? To catalog the Great Crusade, so they can make paintings, write operas, write symphonies, create poetry and beautiful stories, and kind of ship them back to Earth to use as propaganda, so that everybody will know how great humanity is. And on this expedition, as the changes get wrought into the Emperor's Children Legion, they become more decadent, more perverse, more grotesque. Then you kind of see these humans kind of devolve into following their art. The thing is that Slaanesh has imbued the Laeran Temple with this music and these colors, and anyone who looks at them, the Space Marines, even the Remembrancers who go down to take a look at the temple, it sticks with them. It's like Slaanesh puts his or her little hooks into their brains, and then he makes them want to experience the visuals and the sounds again. And that's kind of how he sets the trap for these people, humans and Space Marines, into wanting to follow him or her. So the painter wants to see and paint with the colors that she saw, or the composer wants to write music that kind of reproduces the music that she heard in the alien temple, and they can't do it because it's all demonic and it wasn't meant for human eyes or ears. And so in trying to recreate it, they unwittingly get closer and closer to evil and Slaanesh. But, like I said, you've got Space Marines to follow, you've got the artists to follow, you've got these Primarchs, and the narrative and the point of view keeps jumping around. So, for me, that was the only negative thing about it. It was so epic in scope, it kept jumping back and forth, trying to make Fulgrim a sympathetic character, and then getting out of his head and getting into the heads of the Space Marines that were following him, and their confusion or their acceptance or their resistance to the changes being wrought in their legion. And there are so many characters. I wish there was an easier way to keep track of them and kind of separate them earlier. That's my only criticism. Graham McNeil does one thing that I have no problem with at all, and that's his description of the Battle of Istvan V. Istvan V is where the Dropsite Massacre happens. It's when supposedly 7 loyalist legions are supposed to go and smash Horus's rebellion, because he's only got 4 legions with him at the time that are openly rebelling against the Emperor. And then turns out that 4 of those loyalist legions turn out to be evil. And Graham McNeil does a stupendous job. The scope, the epic scope of his description of Istvan V, from the minute that it's almost like one of those long shots of those long continuous shots in movies, in cinema, that just is so... you read it and it's exhilarating, it's exciting. He talks about just the scope, the epic scope of all these thousands of tanks and Space Marines, and it's like your mind becomes this canvas, and you see the painting that you see the picture that he's painting. It's just unbelievable. You see the sights, you hear the sounds and the smells, and it's like you experience the Dropsite Massacre more than anything. And I just picked up the Horus Heresy books from Forge World, and I tell you, Graham McNeil, in how many pages that he uses to describe the Battle of Istvan V, he does it. He does a great job. It's a shame that that's all the way at the end, and you have to go through so much character stuff before it gets there, because when you get there, that is like the scope that you have been waiting for. It's almost like a scene from another book. But amazing job, Graham McNeil, on that. And overall, I really liked it. I kind of found myself wishing that there was more, that there was a little bit more pushback from the good guys, from the loyalists. But I guess that's just my dissenting voice. It's hard to believe that a whole legion would fall to chaos, except for the couple of loyalists that Fulgrim could pick out. But that's just me getting philosophical. If I'm looking at it from a reader's point of view, it took me about a week, a couple of hours a day reading. I couldn't get into some parts, and I just kind of read to get into the next part. But I mean, it's great. You've got cameos, like I said, from other people. You've got references to other books. Eldrad Othlin makes a little appearance, and Yeah, one of the best parts too is when Graham McNeill is talking about the battle for Istvan 5. There is dialogue between the Primarchs, the Loyalist Primarchs, Vulcan and Ferrus Manus and Corax, when the traitor, the traitors masquerading as Loyalists drop down, that I read in Vulcan Lives. And Vulcan Lives is like the second to the latest book that just came out. And this was written, 6 years ago. And the dialogue is the same, but it's just taken from another point of view. So in Vulcan Lives, you see it from Vulcan's point of view. In this one, you're following Ferrus Manus as he's charging through the battlefield. You hear the dialogue. It's like consistent, and that's what I like about it. It's consistent, and the ability to follow this storyline. So much stuff happens in this book, and I do recommend it. I give it a thumbs up. If you've got the time to read it, it's definitely worth the money. If you are a Chaos Space Marine player, or if you are an Emperor's Children player, or if you want to do some kind of crazy pre-heresy Emperor's Children army where they're loyalists or traitors, fantastic. You get to see how the Noise Marines kind of first started and where their sonic weaponry kind of originates from. A lot of stuff that you see later on in the books, you see here. Also, if you read Angel Exterminatus, they have, I'm not sure if Graham McNeill wrote that one too, but I mean, all of these characters come back for that. The traitor guys that are still alive are back in that one too. So it's cool to see consistency between the books. And that's what's so great about the Horus Heresy series. It's not just one author. It's all these different authors that are comparing notes and sharing stories and characters jumping from story to story and from author to author. And it's really fantastic. So check out Fulgrim if you are a Horus Heresy fan, if you're an Emperor's Children fan. Don't read it if you're an Iron Hands fan. They kind of get beat around a lot and smashed back and forth here and there. But yeah, great book, great time. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this little unbooking. See you later, players.